I can't help but notice that all the hype around crypto has a lot of people chasing shitcoins for short-term gains. A crypto with a valuable real-world use case is a foreign concept to many moonboys. This makes it entertaining to see their confusion when a crypto project with strong fundamentals finally starts to fly. We're starting to see many of these cryptos come to the forefront, and one of them is Filecoin. The FIL coin doubled in price earlier this month, which caught many people off guard. Surely this price action had nothing to do with the fact that Filecoin is looking to become the world's decentralized data cloud or anything. Well, as it turns out, Filecoin's fundamentals are only half the story when it comes to FIL's recent rally. Did Filecoin just get caught up in the Moonboy hype? Or is something brewing that will bring bigger moves? Today, I intend to find out. Before we dine, I need to dish out some disclaimers. I am not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial or investment advice. What you decide to do with your bread is a decision you need to make with your own head, and you can fill up on crypto facts to make sure you get those stacks. If this is your first time as my guest, my name is Guy, and my goal is to bring you the best. Here at the Coin Bureau, you'll find the finest selection of crypto content that YouTube has to offer. Coins, tokens, exchanges, regulations, market analyses are just a few of my crypto recipes. If your craving for crypto can't be stopped, subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell to make sure you get these videos a la carte. You can scan through today's menu by skimming across the timestamps in the video timeline. Feel free to skip to the topics which tease your taste buds the most. I will just remind you that it is polite to consume every course. Now then, let's see what's got Filecoin fired up. If Filecoin is foreign to you, here are some fast facts. Filecoin is the incentive layer for the Interplanetary File System, or IPFS. The IPFS makes it possible to host web content in a decentralized manner across multiple computers instead of a centralized server like the HTTP-hosted content we use today. Filecoin and IPFS are just two of the protocols being built by Protocol Labs in their mission to create a new decentralized internet. The Filecoin is native to the Filecoin blockchain, which is built on top of the IPFS. The Filecoin blockchain handles all transactions related to storing data, specifically the agreements between clients who are looking to store data and storage miners who store that data on the IPFS for a small fee paid in Filecoin. To ensure storage miners keep their end of the bargain, they must write a proof to the Filecoin blockchain that they are storing the data whenever a data deal is done. This is called proof of replication. Since the storage miner could simply delete the data after submitting the initial proof, storage miners are periodically asked to submit additional proofs that they are still storing the data in question. This is called proof of spacetime. If a storage miner fails to submit the initial proof or any follow-up proofs of data storage, some of the Filecoins they stake to participate on the Filecoin network are slashed. In addition to fees from storage deals, storage miners earn block rewards proportional to how much hard drive space they've committed to the Filecoin network. When a client wants to receive a file from Filecoin, they must pay a small fee in FIL to a retrieval miner who fetches the file. The Filecoin blockchain automatically gives preference to retrieval miners that are located close to the client requesting their data to ensure a speedy retrieval. Storage miners can also play the role of a retrieval miner, but not vice versa. This complex process of storing and retrieving data is simplified by decentralized storage applications, which act as a user-friendly front end to Filecoin's fancy mechanics. Although Filecoin has technically been in the works since 2014, the Filecoin mainnet only launched in October last year. Now, this was met with a lot of fanfare given the scale of the project and the fact that Filecoin had raised over $200 million in their 2017 ICO. I did a video about Filecoin shortly after the mainnet launch, which I recommend you watch if you want to take a closer look under the hood. The link is hanging up there in the top right. Those of you who watched my previous video about Filecoin will recall that a few details about the project were up in the air at the time. For starters, there's the Filecoin Foundation, whose members and MO were made clear shortly afterwards. The Filecoin Foundation has 3 board members and 8 advisors, all of which are heavyweights in the crypto space. The Filecoin Foundation coordinates all the stakeholders on Filecoin, including users, miners, and developers. Any changes made to Filecoin will be done using the Filecoin Improvement Proposal process via FIPs, which are analogous to Ethereum's own improvement proposals known as EIPs. 14 FIPs have been proposed so far, and one of the most significant is FIP 0003, which details the architecture of Filecoin Plus. Filecoin Plus is being introduced as a solution to an unexpected problem for Filecoin. As I mentioned a few moments ago, storage miners earn rewards from committing computing power and storing client data. The thing is, there's no way of knowing whether the data being stored is actually coming from a unique third party or from the storage miner which is hosting the data. This makes it easy for a miner to make big bucks stuffing their committed hard drive space with their own data. The way Filecoin's economics are designed, these, quote, bad storage deals will become more common as the network matures. Filecoin Plus introduces a, quote, social layer of trust to prevent these bad deals from happening, and involves an elaborate data deal vetting process that is, quite frankly, outside the scope of this video. I'll leave a link to the GitHub post explaining how Filecoin Plus works, along with a link to a blog post detailing Filecoin's tokenomics, which were also clarified a few weeks after my last video went out. FIL has a maximum supply of 2 billion and is technically deflationary, since any slashed FIL stakes from storage miners are burned. Only about 30% of FIL's total supply has been earmarked for Protocol Labs, the Filecoin Foundation, and the private investors who were allowed to participate in the 2017 SAFT sale. The remaining 70% of FIL's total supply will be minted in 3 ways. Up to 770 million FIL will be minted based on the performance of the network, with more FIL being minted with each block as more storage miners commit memory. These tokens will be released over a 20-year period, by which point Filecoin should have over a yottabyte of storage available. If it doesn't meet that requirement, then not all 770 million FIL will be minted. Now, for context, a yottabyte is about 1,000 times larger than the current capacity of all existing cloud storage platforms combined. 330 million FIL will be minted regardless of the performance of the network over a 30-year period, and the remaining 300 million FIL will be set aside as reserves for, quote, future types of mining. When it comes to the current state of Filecoin, I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is that the Filecoin ecosystem is growing at an exponential rate. In October 2020, Filecoin partnered with LivePeer to bring decentralized video streaming to the IPFS. In November, Filecoin surpassed over 1.1 billion gigabytes of storage space. For context, that's more than Netflix's estimated storage space. In December, the Huobi exchange announced they'd be shelling out $10 million to support Filecoin's research and development. That same month, Filecoin announced that they'd awarded grants to over 25 projects building on Filecoin as part of their ongoing Dev Grant initiative. The Filecoin also became DeFi ready thanks to the Ren wrapping protocol, which brought Ren Fil to Ethereum for borrowing and lending. At the start of January this year, Chinese investment firm Fenbushi Capital committed another $20 million to further fast-track Filecoin's growth. In mid-January, Brave became the first desktop browser to support the IPFS protocol. This was followed by the revelation that recently elected SEC Chairman Gary Gensler seems to be a fan of both Filecoin and Ethereum. By February, Filecoin had over 2 billion gigabytes of storage space being offered up by over 1,000 storage miners. Earlier this month, Grayscale unveiled trusts for 5 altcoins, including FIL, which had a predictable effect on the price of Filecoin. Unfortunately, almost every positive piece of news about Filecoin since October 2020 has been accompanied by some factual FUD. One day after the Filecoin mainnet launched, some of its largest storage miners went, quote, on strike to protest about the low block rewards they were earning. Filecoin founder Juan Bennett was quick to dismiss these allegations and said in an interview that this was nothing more than an attempt by storage miners to force Filecoin into forking over more FIL. There must have been some merit to the moaning of storage miners, though, because a subsequent update to Filecoin fiddled with FIL rewards for storage miners, granting them an early FIL token unlock. What exactly happened is a bit complicated, but the short of it is that any Filecoin storage miners earn from block rewards were subject to a lengthy vesting schedule. This created a serious twofold problem for Filecoin miners. First, a slow release of FIL means slow and low profits. Second, FIL is required for staking, and the initial circulating supply of FIL was already incredibly small. A lengthy vesting schedule just added to that supply shortage, making it hard and expensive for storage miners to commit more hard drive space to the network. Even though Filecoin adjusted the vesting schedule for FIL rewards with the network update, the supply squeeze was still bad enough that Filecoin miners were being driven to borrow FIL from centralized and decentralized lenders in late October. As far as I can tell, storage miners are still having issues getting their hands on the FIL they need to earn block rewards on Filecoin. Less than 2 months later, the Filecoin blockchain ground to a halt. Their explanation of why flew over my head, but the good news is that it had no impact on any data being stored on the IPFS via Filecoin, and the blockchain was back up and running within 4 hours. Just when you thought the optics couldn't get any worse, 2 weeks ago it was found that a Filecoin storage miner had somehow double deposited millions of dollars of FIL into Binance. The explanation for how this happened is once again quite technical, but the dummies version is that a storage miner was waiting for their FIL to transfer to Binance, got impatient with the time it was taking, and sent a second transaction that should have replaced the first one on the Filecoin blockchain. Somehow, Binance's wallet saw both transactions as valid and deposited twice the amount of FIL that was actually being sent. Decrypt reported that the issue was on Binance's end, whereas CoinDesk seems to imply that this was due to errors in Filecoin's code. To be clear, this double deposit doesn't constitute a double spend, which is where new coins are minted out of thin air on the blockchain. This didn't give me much consolation when I read the storage miner who'd reported the double deposit said that they had seen it happen before, and that it was not limited to Binance either. Now, thankfully, the Filecoin team is working to, quote, audit the deposit mechanism to avoid future issues, and no other exchanges have reported the double deposit glitch since then. Most importantly, all this FUD has had next to no visible impact on the price of FIL. Funnily enough, FIL only recently surpassed its all-time high, which had been set on its first day of trading. FIL's initial price spike was likely driven by the incredible hype which has been building for years. The nasty shakeout that followed was probably caused by the FUD about storage miners going offline. FIL was sleepy until early February when the price suddenly doubled. This move happens to perfectly mirror Bitcoin's price action at the time. FIL pulled another 2x earlier this month, and this seems to be caused by the official launch of Grayscale's Filecoin Trust. According to Grayscale's website, they currently hold around $1.3 million worth of FIL. Now, that's not much, but it's not bad considering the trust is not even a month old. Moreover, the low supply of FIL in circulation means that even just $1 million is enough to move the market by multiple percentage points. The order books for FIL on most exchanges are extremely shallow relative to FIL's market cap, which currently stands at around $5 billion. While I'm sure Grayscale isn't buying from exchanges, if there is enough institutional demand for FIL, they probably won't have any other choice as time goes on. And speaking of demand, something tells me that most of it is coming from storage miners. Out of the 60 or so million FIL in circulation, over 50 million of it is being staked by storage miners, and that number is going up by the day. By contrast, only about 1 million gigabytes of Filecoin's 3.5 billion gigabyte capacity is being used. Now, that isn't very much in the grand scheme of things, though that number has grown significantly since November, when only 761 gigabytes of data was being stored using Filecoin. Back to FIL's market cap, though. FIL has a fully diluted market cap, which is almost as large as Ethereum's. Now, I know that a substantial chunk of FIL's supply is vesting, and most of it has yet to be minted, but I still can't shake the feeling that FIL might be a bit overvalued. That said, it is very likely that FIL will see significant growth before this bull market is over. As concerning as the low circulating supply is, I have no doubts that it could easily grease a parabolic move to a $500 price tag. Whether or not this happens partially relies on what Filecoin has in store. The closest thing Filecoin has to a roadmap is their FIPs, and most of these are fairly technical in nature. I also didn't pick up on any concrete, forward-looking statements in any of Filecoin's recent online events. However, there are a few hints as to what's next for Filecoin. Most of the recent videos on Filecoin's YouTube channel have been related to governance. Filecoin's earlier documentation and the Filecoin Foundation website also suggest that the project will eventually transition into some sort of DAO. My guess is that Filecoin Plus is going to double as a testbed for this upcoming governance model. Filecoin's governance is probably going to look a lot different than other cryptocurrency networks though, and that's because of data DAOs. A Filecoin blog post from February defines data DAOs as community or corporate-run organizations that have governance over a particular type of data. The focus of Filecoin Plus will likely be to govern Filecoin's fundamental parameters, whereas various data DAOs will have governance over the actual data stored using Filecoin. This is actually more important than it seems because one of the most pressing questions about decentralized data storage networks like Filecoin and the IPFS is the moderation of content. It's very possible that governance and moderation are the last two things Filecoin needs to figure out before it can reach mainstream adoption. By that point, they'll hopefully figure out how to speed up the storage and retrieval process, which currently takes 5 to 10 minutes per megabyte to store and 3 hours per 32 gigabytes to retrieve. Good thing Filecoin has no shortage of funding to make this happen. Filecoin is one of the few crypto projects that's truly trying to change the world and actually has something to show for it. Its fundamental value proposition is easy to understand, and the issues we've seen when it comes to things like website outages and censorship make decentralized databases like Filecoin and the IPFS that much more valuable. As sluggish as Filecoin's development has been, I really can't blame them. Becoming the foundation for all of humanity's information is a huge undertaking, and something that cannot be rushed for the sake of short-term profits. I don't think there are any other cryptos on the market with minting and vesting schedules that last longer than a few years, and those for the FIL token will last for decades. I take this as proof that Filecoin is playing the long game, which is why I probably shouldn't get too hung up about FIL's fully diluted market cap. Given the scope of the project, it might actually be a fair valuation. Still, there's no excusing the dozens of critical issues the Filecoin network has experienced since it launched. Were it not for Filecoin's status and its eternal fountain of funding, news of a double deposit would probably have been the end for Filecoin. I blame these issues on the fact that Protocol Labs seems to be more focused on IPFS than Filecoin. The reason I suspect this is because IPFS has been cranking out almost twice the amount of updates as Filecoin. Whatever the cause, I hope the folks at Filecoin get their act together because we need a reliable, decentralized database more than ever. If you agree, be sure to smash that like button and be sure to subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell if you want to get more of my passionate crypto pondering. You can get more of my hot takes by following me on Twitter, and tuning into my TikTok channel will make you feel like you're right here behind the scenes at the Coin Bureau. I've started doing bi-weekly Q&As on my Instagram, so be sure to follow me there and get your questions ready for when the next one rolls around. Joining the Coin Bureau Insider Telegram channel is also an easy way of staying in the loop with the latest and greatest crypto gems and market-moving news I come across. If you find yourself getting perpetually wrecked by the crypto market, you can get the tools and tricks you need to tame it by subscribing to my weekly newsletter. And lastly, if you want to support the channel, you can swipe some crypto swag from the Coin Bureau merch store. This is just one of the many designs you'll find, and I've got plenty more in the works. Links to all these goodies are in the video description. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in about a day's time. Maybe 2. Cheers.